So I wanted to go through an example of what you would do on these kinds of questions, how you can take the graph and add two functions together, because a lot of us feel comfortable doing something like if f of x is 2x plus 3 and g of x is, let's say, 1x minus 4, that we feel pretty good about adding them together in an algebraic sense, so -1 and then 3x. So when I have two linear functions like this, think about common terms, adding and subtracting common terms. If I add a linear term and a linear term, my power isn't going to get greater. It's still just going to be a linear term. So these ones where you're adding and subtracting linear functions, you're just going to be staying with a linear function as the answer. So this would be the function itself, but how can I do that? How can I graph a function being added together, or a function which is the solution of two things being added together, as an answer? So what you're going to do is you have to recognize that f of x is representative of the y of some specific input, right? G of x is representative of the y of some specific input. So for example, let's look at the input of -1 here. And if I look at the input of -1, the output here is -6, and the output here is +1. So here they're asking us to add f of x and g of x. So I'm adding the y of this function and the y of this function. So I'm going to take the y1 and I'm going to add it to the y -6. That's going to give me a -5 for the additive solution there. Okay, let's do another one. Maybe we'll do 0. At 0 here, this is 2 and this is -4. So -4 plus 2 gives us 2. Okay. One more point ought to be enough for us to have a good little sketch. Let's look at maybe x equals 2. So here x equals 2, and the output for this is 0, and the output for this is 4. So what is 0 plus 4? It's simply 4. So I'm going to take my 3 points that I've created and sketch a line through them and say that this line right here represents the function f of x added to the function g of x as a visual representation. Hopefully you can do this one here. This one, I want you to do a little bit of critical thinking. If I have a linear equation times a linear equation, I should be looking at what kind of function. So if I take a linear times a linear, I should get a what? And then you're going to do the same kind of process. So think about it. I'm saying take the y of this function visually. Look at an example like here, 2, and the y of the same x for this function, -4. What am I doing with them? In this case, I'm multiplying them together. So where would I plot that? -4 times 2 is going to give us -8, so it would be down here. So it would give us 1 point. So remember, linear times a linear, we're going to get a graph here of some kind of function. What would that be? And I want you to make a sketch of that. So that's how that question would be worked out.